is in hospital, so I will the MC as well.
Sad to hear. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I would like to start with Basmalah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Allahumma sholli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So on behalf of the committee member and the Faculty of Business and Economics, I would like to thank Prof. Jose Paulo Mac. I hope I pronounce your name well.
Yeah, it's okay.
For being with us today. It is truly a great honor for us to have you here.
Honor is mine. The honor is mine.
And I will come and thank to all students who have spent their time to attend this event. I believe you will learn valuable lessons from today's lecture. I would like to thank Dr. Sabrin Siddiq, who this is Dr. Sabrin Siddiq, Prof, the one it is now the chief of the study program, who will deliver the opening speech. I would like to thank also to Mr. Muhammad Bekti Hendrianto, who will be responsible for guiding the lecture session. The lecture is actually an annual event. We invited various lectures from all around the world for the benefit of students in terms of, global sources of knowledge. And this year is special since we have Professor Mac, who has excellent background in both academic as well as real businesses. He has some responsibilities in various real businesses as well as working with, I think, the Philippines government in a lot of business and economic matters.
Yes.
Finally, I would like to thank to the all committee members who have been working so hard to make this event a reality. And from me, and I think this for me as the to represent all the committee members. And I think I know will ask Pak Bekti Hendrianto to fully in charge in creating this event. Time is yours, Pak Anto.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Pak Hakim. Just to let Professor Mac knows that Pak in Bahasa is Mr.
Mr.
So, yes, Mr. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, very nice to meet you, ladies and gentlemen. Now I think we are pleasure, to come to the main session of this afternoon programs. And now we are going to get a speech from Professor Mac about financial market in ASEAN. Yeah. So just my little introduction about this. There are two keywords here. Yeah. That is financial market, and then the second is ASEAN. I'm sure that the participants, I mean my dear students, maybe have been familiar with financial market because we have several modules in our lectures, about financial market. But I'm worried about ASEAN. We are part of ASEAN since 1967.
Yes.
But now I think, along with the era of globalization, the popularity of ASEAN, I think now in a problems. I mean, maybe many people understand very well about ASEAN. I will give a first questions from the students, and I will give a prize, I think, in the end of the sessions for students who can answer my question properly. This is very easy, very, very easy, but you have to answer very fast. What ASEAN stands for? 3, 2, 1. Nobody answer.
Oh.
What ASEAN stands for? Oh, Salwa Atsila Humaira. Yeah, he is writing in the chat.
Yes.
Oh, okay, Salwa, can you speak directly through the Zoom? Salwa?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What ASEAN stands for?
ASEAN is Association of Southeast Asian Nations.
Okay. How many countries, how many nations the members of ASEAN?
Right now there is, if I wasn't wrong, there is 10 members. There is Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam.
Okay, great.
Very
Okay,
good.
thank you,
Very good.
Atsila. Okay, the prize will wait for you at the end of the sessions. Yeah, all right. Okay, I think Pak Hakim has introduced Professor Mac very short. I think we are happy this afternoon to hear the speech from Professor Mac, because from his curriculum vitae, I think we can find that Professor Max has, I think, a complete background. I mean, he is an academician as well as his practitioners. He has several activities in real economics, yeah, and I think this is very important for us to get a complete understanding about some things. According to the rundown of the programs, Professor Mac will will deliver a speech for about 45 minutes. So the session will be 45 minutes for delivering knowledge, and then about 20 minutes will be used for asking and question. Right? Okay, Professor Mac, please, time and connections is yours.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
No problem, Pak. No problem. It's no problem. Okay.
Yes. Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Welcome.
Thank you for giving me the floor, sir. Professor Muhammad. I would, if you don't mind, I would like to share my screen.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the problem with sometimes a problem with technology.
The old fashioned.
Yes, yes. Can you now see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, I think.
Okay, that's good. Okay, I'm setting. Right, here we go. So this afternoon, I'm going to talk about the financial markets and how they work and the implications during the pandemic. As you can see, financial markets, we're all familiar with it, and we're all familiar how important the financial markets are to the economy of any country for that matter. But it's great to see how we are able to view these financial markets against the current backdrop of what we have right now. Because admittedly, we are in a global pandemic. We are in a crisis of sorts, though not of the financial kind, not of the economic kind, but rather the medical or the health kind of epidemic. So if you'll allow me to continue, I'm going to answer what are financial markets, okay? So for those who are not so familiar, financial markets refer to any marketplace wherein people trade financial securities or derivatives. When we say financial securities, these are as simple as pieces of paper that signify that you own an asset, that you own something, okay? So whether it be the rights to ownership, whether it be the rights to a particular commodity like wheat, gold, or even oil, these are financial securities, and the pieces of paper actually represents your ownership of that. Now, derivatives are of a different sort. Derivatives are underlying values of these assets, okay? So I will be discussing that more in detail later. Now, Some of the securities include, well, what we have are stocks, bonds, and commodities. Okay, so when we say stocks, these are certificates of ownership of a particular company. Bonds are certificates that show that that particular company or corporation owes you money. And commodities are, well, commodities, the usual things that you see, like coffee, cocoa, sugar, those are commodities. Okay, and they are being traded. So in a technical sense, a market refers to the exchanges that facilitate trade in these securities. And these can come such as the New York Stock Exchange, NYSE, London Stock Exchange, or even the NASDAQ. Now, these exchanges might be physical exchanges like the NYSE, or even electronic such as NASDAQ. Okay. Now, going to the types of financial markets. Now, the types of financial markets are, first, we have the capital markets. The capital markets are financial markets in which long-term, that means over a year, debt or equity-backed securities are bought and sold. When we say long-term, it's usually over a year. Okay, so if, say, for example, someone were to borrow money from you and you said, okay, I will lend you money, but you'll have to return it to me in 3 months. That's a short-term debt. That's a short-term borrowing. That's not long-term. But when we say, okay, you can pay it to me 1 year from after a year from now, that becomes a long-term debt. Someone even asked me. I could remember a student of mine asked me, "Sir, what if it's about a year and 1 second? Will that make it long-term?" Yes, that would actually technically that would make it long-term. Okay, anything over a year, that means long-term in a financial sense. Okay. Now, equity, when we say equity, okay, equity means this is using your own money. Because you see, when you do business, you need funds, right? You need cash. And what are the sources of funds, or what are the sources of cash? There are two main sources, namely equity and debt. So when we're talking about equity, that means that you're using your own money to put up the business. So that's what equity means. Debt, on the other hand, means that you borrow money from someone. Like, for example, you borrow from your mother, you borrow from your father, your uncle, or anyone for that particular matter. That is debt. Okay, and you're using debt in order to finance putting up your business. Now, the markets in a capital market are, we have the stock markets, wherein when we say stock, that means that is a certificate representing equity. Okay, so here financing for a company is made through issuance of a common stock. Okay, so that means that when a company seeks additional funds, what they usually do is that they say, for example, a company A says, I need something like, let's use dollar cents, okay? Something like $5 million for this venture because we need that much money. Okay, so they can't do it outright to sell it in public. They will have to parcel it into different into little bits of pieces called stocks. Now, the stocks would now depend on the value of the company and the number of stocks that they plan to issue. Like say, for example, that, okay, we're going to sell our common stocks for, say, for example, $5 per stock. So that means that they will be issuing 5 million of these stocks. Now, if you, the public, want to invest in that company, okay, you want to invest in that company, you can buy these stocks, okay? You can buy these stocks, but of course, you will need to go to the stock exchange in order to buy these stocks. I want to be a part owner of that company, so I'm going to buy some stocks of that. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to buy, and then when you buy, and then once the sale is made, automatically you now become a part owner of a company. Okay, like say, but sir, what if I just buy one stock? Will that make me an owner of the company? Definitely. Even one stock, you can proudly say, I am the owner of this company, because you have one stock that shows that you're a part owner of that company. Okay, and the stocks issued are then subsequently traded on the market. Okay, so that means that the money you use to buy the stock automatically goes to the company, and the company, the company now has the funds in order to do their expansion to their business. Now, on the other hand, the bond markets here, the financing is made through issuance of corporate bonds. That means that if the company is making you a part owner in the stock market, here in the bond market, they are borrowing from you. So that means that if you're going to acquire a bond, that means that you're actually effectively lending to the company your money. And of course, it's going to be returned to you upon the expiration of the bond. Because you see, unlike stocks, bonds have expirations. Okay, and then when it expires, that means that they will pay you back your money. Okay, so that's what the capital. But of course with interest. So that's how you make money of this. Okay, so moving on, we have the commodities market. The commodities market is a market that trades in the primary economic sector. And there are two types of commodities traded. What we have are the soft commodities. So the soft commodities referred to which are grown and harvested, such as crops, rice, corn, wheat. You have livestock, you have cocoa, coffee, sugar, fish, timber. Anything which is grown and harvested can be referred to as a soft commodity. Okay? And then hard commodities refer to commodities which are mined and extracted, such as precious metals like gold, silver, copper, minerals, oil, and gas. Okay? So I know Indonesia is very rich in hard commodities and soft commodities, and that makes Indonesia also a big player in the commodities market. So you mean to say, sir, rice is being traded. As you see, when the rice changes hands, the rights to the rice changes hands, you see the rise and fall of the prices of rice, and partly that's what drives it. Okay, and moving on, we have the money markets. Just very shortly, I'll run through this. So the money markets provide this time short-term debt financing and investment. Unlike capital markets, money markets provide that short-term debt financing and investment, like treasury bills and stuff like that. So it's less than 1 year. Okay. Derivatives market, as I mentioned previously, it is the underlying value of an asset, because this actually provides the instruments for managing financial risk. This is tied up with the futures market, which also deals with the forward contracts. Now, a forward contract, I'm going to deal with this in one setting, because the forward contract is an example of a derivative. So what is a forward contract? Let's say, for example, that there's a farmer, and the farmer wants to cash in or be sure that he's going to be compensated for his harvest, but his harvest is yet ways off, because the rice, for example, he's a rice farmer, the rice is still growing and there's no harvest yet, but he fears for the future. He fears that the rice might be subject to the typhoon, or there might be locusts. So he needs to protect that investment. So what he does is that he enters into a forward contract. That means that it is a contract with someone who promises to buy his rice for that fixed amount. So that means that, okay, I'm going to buy that amount of rice. Okay, I want to be sure. So I'm going to buy that rice at this price. Okay, so definitely the promise or the contract that he's going to enter into, the rice, the price for the rice, okay, the price for the rice, they've already estimated how much the yield is going to be. And then the one making the contract pays the farmer the amount. Okay, but how does he's crazy? Why would he do that? Why would he? There's no rice yet. Why would he do that? Because the forward contract, okay, usually it stipulates a price lower than the market price. So when it's time for the harvest, it's already given to the one who holds the contract. Okay, so if you're, like, say, for example, you're getting the rice price. Okay, like, let's say, for example, the market price is, for example, $2, and the contract states that, okay, I'm going to buy it for $1 per sack. Okay, so that's the per kilo. So that's the exchange. Now, what happens is that when it's time to finally harvest, the one getting the harvest now gets to negotiate it or sell it to someone at a market price or higher. Okay, so that's where he makes the money. Okay, so that's what derivatives is all about. Now, the foreign exchange market, or the forex, is where foreign currencies are being traded. Yes, foreign currencies are being traded. So that means that when there are changes, when there are blips in the change of value of the foreign currencies, what happens here is that this is where you get your earnings. Okay, like for example, there are changes. Like for example, the change in the change in I'm really bad with using rupiah. Can anyone tell me how much $1 is to $1 is in rupiah?
It's about 14,000.
14,000. Thank you, sir. So let's just say it's around 14,000 to $1. Okay, around 14,000 to $1. Now, if the price, like let's say for example, I'm going to use that 14,000 and I'm going to buy in US dollars, exchange it in US dollars. Okay, I'm gonna wait for it to go for if the Indonesian rupiah goes to the value, it goes down in value. That means that that means that the US dollar increases, and I'm holding on to US dollar, and I bought it for 14,000 rupiah, and it has become 15,000. That's 1,000 rupiah for me for every dollar, right? If I'm going to exchange the dollar now. So that's the simple way of making money off the foreign exchange. Okay, so that's what it is. Sometimes foreign exchange markets are also used by businessmen whenever they need currencies for them to use for their business, especially if they have overseas operations. Okay, so that's the foreign exchange market. Okay, so for foreign exchange market, I think I've explained that. It's a duplication. Then we have cryptocurrency markets. I'm sure you've heard of the cryptocurrency markets. So the cryptocurrency markets are a venue for the trading of digital assets and financial technologies. So we're talking about cryptocurrencies, we're talking about non-fungible transactions, blockchains. Okay, these are the in thing now, but we're not really going to delve much deeper in that. Okay, so moving on, how do financial markets works amid this backdrop? As we've discussed the various types of financial markets trading different assets. Okay, so we've seen the financial markets trade capital markets, stocks, bonds. We've seen it trade currencies, seen it trade commodities, and with different rules, of course, with different rules and regulations. One thing is truly common in all of them. Okay, so all financial markets work by bringing together buyers and sellers and allowing them to trade with one another. That's it. That's what financial markets is all about. This is usually done is through auction. That means bid or ask, or price discovery mechanism. Like for example, there's a stock that's for sale. Usually, it is in a bid ask format. So, like let's say the broker is saying that, okay, this stock is worth 21,000. Like for example, this stock is worth like let's say 21,000 rupiah. Going once, going twice, 22. Okay, so you're gonna go for 22. You bid for 22, and if no one is entertaining that, no one is matching that, automatically that becomes yours. Or sometimes when we call price discovery, when you go to a particular market, in a physical market, you actually get to discover the price based on your agreement between you, the buyer, and the seller as well. So that's what you call a price discovery mechanism, because there's no fixed price yet. Okay, so the seller is going to probably offer, okay, this would be worth 10,000 rupiah, and then you say, can't you make it something like 9,500 for that? Okay, and then he says, okay, I agree to that price. So that's now the price. Okay, so that's what you call a price discovery mechanism. Okay, so what is the function of a financial market? Okay, this might probably enter your mind now. So why are we talking about the financial markets? Okay, the most basic function is to allow for the efficient allocation of capital and assets in a financial economy. Okay, that's it. Because as you can see, if businesses can't just go to your homes and ask for your money, right? So in order for private enterprises to have access to huge amounts of capital, they will have to get it from the public. Okay, and in order for them to legally get it from the public, okay, they will have to what? They will have to either borrow from the public or make the public the part owner of that venture. Okay, the part owner of the business. So that's the function of a financial market. So allowing a free market for the flow of capital, financial obligations, and money, the financial markets make the global economy run more smoothly while also allowing the investors to participate in capital gains over time. So you see, you get the money which is being unused from people who are not using the money to the people who have need for the money. Okay, so that's the function of a financial market. Okay, it's just like when I think you've already been acquainted with banks, wherein what's the purpose of what is really the purpose of banks? The purpose of banks is to facilitate the transfer of funds from, for example, you, the depositor, because you're not going to need the money, so you're going to put it in the bank, and then the bank is going to lend it to someone. That means that the bank is going to technically give the money to someone who has need for those funds. Okay, so the financial markets also allow for that. But unlike banks, you get to earn more here if you're someone who has spare money and you want your money to grow. Okay, so this is primarily the essence of capitalism: moving of funds from people who have excess to people who need the funds. Okay. So without financial markets, capital could not be allocated efficiently. Commerce, trade, and investment opportunities would be hampered. Okay. So the free flow of capital enables business to accelerate their growth by having opportunities to have access to, of course, unused funds. Why do I say unused? Because savings are unused funds. Okay. It's just there. You're not using it. You're not spending it. So rather than just your funds sitting there, spending the time, not earning anything, it could be given an opportunity that it could generate more for the one who owns that fund, okay? By giving it to someone who does not have or needs the funds for their own business ventures. Okay, now, with that backdrop, with that picture, we're now going to talk about the financial markets in the ASEAN. So in the ASEAN, there are 7 main ASEAN stock exchanges. Okay, there are, if you note, 7, sir. But aren't there 10? But aren't there 10 countries in the ASEAN? These stock exchanges, mind you, are the largest and the most established. Others are just either too small or just new, like in Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, and Brunei Darussalam. These stock exchanges are really old and they really have established already. So we have the Bursa Malaysia, we have the Hanoi Stock Exchange and the Ho Chi Minh Stock Exchange of Vietnam. Yes, they have 2 stock exchanges. And your Indonesia Stock Exchange, or the IDX. We have the Philippine Stock Exchange, our Stock Exchange, or PSE. The Stock Exchange of Thailand, or SET, and the Singapore Stock Exchange, or the SGX. Now, prior to the pandemic, the ASEAN capital markets have experienced steady growth in terms of capitalization. And as the ASEAN market grows, you see the ASEAN market prior to the pandemic was one of the most dynamic markets in the world, actually, with a lot of growth potential in terms of, because of our very young population. Okay, Indonesia actually is forging ahead because among all the ASEAN nations, Indonesia has the largest reserves of natural resources and also the largest population. So as the ASEAN market grows, more investors are willing to put in the money. So here's a little chart here that shows you the growth of the ASEAN stock market capitalization. When we say stock market capitalization, that means that this is the amount that the investors are putting in. Okay, they are betting on the ASEAN companies to grow. So as you can see here, these are color coded. Okay, these are color coded. And I know that of particular note to you is the IDX, okay, or the Indonesian. And as you can see, the IDX really is not far behind in terms of market capitalization. It's actually quite comparable with Bursa Malaysia. And of course, the largest being, of course, Singapore. We know how strong the economy in Singapore is. Okay, so this is the outlook for prior to the pandemic. And the ASEAN market capitalization percent relative to the GDP. So you can see here also relative to the GDP. Singapore Stock Exchange still outperforms the others, but as you can see, the other Southeast Asian or ASEAN market capitalization is not really far behind. Indonesia is just here, right in the middle. But of course, we're facing the COVID pandemic. So what was the effect of the COVID pandemic at the start? Okay, so at the start of the pandemic, capital markets faced a downturn. Okay, so this is notably due to the fears in the growing cases of the coronavirus infections, forcing governments to initiate lockdowns. Sadly, most ASEAN nations have reacted quite late. Admittedly, also, my country has really reacted really late with regards to the lockdown, because governments were trying to the government was trying to allay the fears of the general public, and they were downplaying the effects of the coronavirus infections, and that really resulted in a mixed approach to the policy, because there was really a threat, and our government was really keen on stopping it. However, they did not also want the public to panic, so they still allowed some tourists. Even the case of, I think, around 300 Chinese tourists who went inside our country, and sure enough, some of them actually already had the coronavirus, and it escalated. Okay, so that really forced, instead of a calibrated lockdown, we were forced into a really drastic lockdown. So in some ASEAN countries, lockdowns really literally ground the economic activity to halt, as the inflow of tourists and investors were blocked and the domestic activity was really severely restricted. One of the very first countries to actually do the lockdown was actually Vietnam, because they made the lockdown, I think in 2019 December, when there was already a report of an outbreak of coronavirus in Wuhan. They immediately reacted, and I think Vietnam, among all the ASEAN countries, actually had the best management concerning this and the best reaction concerning this, because as early as 2019 they already initiated the lockdowns. Here in the maritime Southeast Asia, like Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, and Indonesia, we were quite late to the reaction. So that's why we're still struggling with the cases as we speak. So as you can see here, what happened during the pandemic, mind you, you might be asking, why is the graph seems to be a little bit going to the left. Doesn't look right. Yes, it doesn't. It's actually correct, because it's negative. My country was the hardest hit here, actually, in the performance of the financial markets. My country, the Philippines, actually was the hardest hit when the pandemic struck. Thailand was next, and of course, South Korea. We're also including here the Asia equity indices. Indonesia actually was not really far behind as well. Okay, so Japan, India, Malaysia, Singapore, Australia, Vietnam, Taiwan. I think every major ASEAN country was really hit, and yeah, sadly, my country was number one here. So the performance in 2020, moving to the 2020, because that's where really the August 30, 2020, this is where the COVID-19 really raged. As you can see here, the movement really all went down. It all went downhill from here. Okay, so Malaysia, Vietnam, Cambodia, Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, Laos, Singapore. Okay, so indices are not the entirety. Mind you, a little note: indices are not the entirety of the stock exchange. These are just select companies or select stocks which are the best performers of a particular stock exchange. That's what you call the index. So if your index is going down, that means that the best performers are going down, then it's really bad news. Okay, it's really bad news. So I'm also putting in here the sectoral impact, because we cannot discuss financial markets without discussing also what's going on. So the sectoral impact by the trilemma, the coronavirus, oil, and interest rates. So as you can see here, the levels of risks that we have in this illustration. So during the coronavirus outbreak, it's considered risky. The consumer, discretionary, materials, and industrial, they're really the hardest hit. Okay. In terms of low interest rate, the financials are also hit. The energy sector is also hit, especially your country, by the weak oil price. Okay, because as you can see, the pandemic also had a particular effect on interest rate and also the oil prices. What was neutral was the information technology, consumer staples, and the real estate. Now, mind you, in my country, information technology actually helped a lot, helped prop up the economy, because more than ever, people are afraid to go out of home, so they tend to go for e-commerce, Shopee, Lazada. They're buying through those, and also a lot of new companies in the Philippines, like online grocers, are actually sprouting up and aiding people in getting the much needed essentials without the people having to go out of their homes. Also, consumer staples are there because whether we like it or not, we have to eat, and we have to have other necessities, so that consumer staples are still there. Real estate, on the other hand, is quite 50-50. I myself, I'm a real estate practitioner. So in my organization, we've really come to a conclusion that it was really a bad time for real estate in our region in Mindanao. People were not really that much into buying real estate, and those who did buy were businessmen who sought to cash in on the lower prices brought about by the pandemic. But otherwise, there wasn't really any sale going on. Okay. So communication service remain resilient. That means that communication services, investing in communication services is still good, because this more than ever in this pandemic, communication services are important. That's why we're having Zoom right now. Okay, this is a form of a communication service. So as you can see, it's really easy to check on which businesses are doing well by checking on which services you avail most of. Okay, so if we're availing more of Zoom, that means that Zoom as a company is really doing well. Okay, healthcare more than ever also is very important and is surviving in the pandemic, because a lot of people are getting sick, and the healthcare professionals really are working hard at an all-time high, and there is a great demand for healthcare. Also utilities as well, because there's still a need for water, there's a need for electricity, when people are staying home. Okay. Now, in 2021, that's this year, at the start, the outlook seems to be that of optimism. We were very optimistic because we felt that the worst has passed. In the first quarter of the year, countries like Vietnam has already controlled the spread of the virus. I'm sure you've heard of it, that Vietnam was already starting to relax, and then people were already experimenting with not have, although they still have masks, but going out and eating out and stuff like that. They've already controlled the spread of the virus because they were very early to the lockdown. Okay. And other ASEAN countries have also exhibited improvement in managing the COVID-19 cases. And as the vaccinations roll in, slowly the economy is opening up. So it seems that at the start, everyone was very optimistic. Everyone was really looking forward to a brand new world wherein the pandemic, we have already overcome the pandemic. However, oh wait, I was getting ahead. So as you can see, these are projections, by the way. These are not the actual figures, but these are the projections by experts of a rebound. Because in the 2020s, it was really bad. Now, the big five of ASEAN, are projected to really go up in terms of the growth in terms of GDP. And as you can see here also, the performances of the major Southeast Asian stock exchanges in January 2020, that's very early in the year, has shown really signs of life. Unlike in 2020, okay? However, here's the problem. With the opening up of the economy again, most of the ASEAN countries experience a surge again in cases. So it seems that we have not truly licked it. And the discovery of the mutation of the COVID-19 to the Delta variant also complicated matters, as the Delta variant was reported to be highly transmissible. And there was even talk that that most of the vaccines that are being issued out are not yet configured for the Delta variant. Okay? So the slow pace of vaccination in ASEAN countries forced governments again to institute lockdowns. I think among all the ASEAN countries, only Singapore has exhibited fast pace of vaccination. I think they're already in the high 60%, 70% of vaccination of their population. You can always claim that, you know, Singapore has a very small population, so it's really easy. But you also have to give credit to their government for a very efficient method of distributing vaccines. The hardest hit here in the slow pace are the countries which have the largest populations in ASEAN. So that's namely us, Philippines, and Indonesia. Okay, because Philippines also has a very, very big population, and like your country, we're also an archipelago. So that means that the transport of vaccines also proves to be logistically difficult. Okay. Just in case you're wondering how big is the population of the Philippines, we're just at around 120 million. So we're almost half your population. So this is how ASEAN stocks as a whole, okay, if you can see, that's the black line. This is the ASEAN index as a whole, our performance versus the performance of the world index and the Asia Pacific Index. Okay, so we really got hit. Okay, and however, there's some optimism because Indonesia, in terms of debt, okay, the local bond return index actually has remained, if not, has gone high. As you can see here, all the other ASEAN countries have really been dipped and have experienced losses, unlike your country. So I guess that concludes my talk. Thank you for having me, and thank you for listening to me for the past 45 minutes. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'll stop my sharing.
All right. Salamat, Prof. Mek, ya.
Thank you. Thank you.
Salamat means
How do you say
thank
it in
you.
your language? Is it
Terima kasih. Terima
terima
kasih.
kasih? Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Terima kasih.
Salamat.
Terima
Terima
kasih.
kasih. Yeah, yes.
Yes.
Just to let you know, I've been in Mindanao twice.
Oh.
Yes, the first time was in 2015. Yeah, we have, I mean, our university had a cooperation with Ateneo de Davao University
Oh.
and
Okay.
several NGOs. Yeah, for example, Peace and Equity Foundations, especially to initiate the development of what is called now is Islamic friendly financial market.
Yes.
Yes.
I used to work with Ateneo de Davao before. I was
Right.
connected
Yes.
with Ateneo de Davao before, and I was actually the program director for the finance program there.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe I've attended one of your sessions, I think.
Yes, maybe. After the first group of the delegates for Ateneo, there are several other groups that went there and to get some session as well. And then for me myself, my second visit to Mindanao was in 2019 in cooperation with Ramon Mangsasai Foundations. It is also about initiation of Islamic microfinance.
Microfinance.
This
Yes.
is very interesting because there is initiation to develop, especially for Bangsa Moro.
Bangsa Moro, yes.
Yeah, instead of political approach, this is economical approach. Yeah.
Because I've heard so much about Indonesia's Islamic microfinance. I think it's called the BMT, right?
Yes.
Am I correct? Yes, that's BMT.
This is one of the special microfinance, Islamic microfinance institution in Indonesia.
Yeah, we heard so much about it, and it's a really good model. It's a very good model, actually.
Yes. And practically, our university has a concern in learning, and then also giving a lecture upon the Islamic financial institution, both in micro and non-micro. Yeah. So that's why I think some of our students will ask you about Islamic financial capital market, maybe.
Okay, I'll do my best. I'm not an expert. But, you are actually the experts, but I will do my best. I'll try to connect as much as possible.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, my dear students, I think Professor Mac has given us a very interesting explanations. He starts from explaining very fundamental ideas about financial market. Yeah, what is the financial market, and then the types, and then also instruments in financial market, and also function of financial market. Yeah, it is very correct that financial market is very important. And then also, I think he has give us a analysis upon the ASEAN financial market during before, during, and I think not post. Yeah, before and during, because now pandemic is still going on. Yeah. And I think it was very interesting because the analysis is very comprehensive. Yeah. And now is the time for question and answers. And of course, the first opportunity goes to the students. Yeah.
Yes.
So I will give you for all students. Please feel free to express your questions and your response to Professor Mac. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. How to do it? Firstly, I think you could raise your hand. Yeah. Of course, through online. Yeah. There is facility here in Zoom. You could raise your hand. Is there any student who want to raise your hand to raise the questions? I think you have a right to answer, Prof. Mac, everything about financial market, especially in ASEAN. Yeah, everything about financial market.
Please don't be shy.
Yeah, because Professor Mac is the expert of financial market. Okay. My dear student, please raise your hand. Anybody? Okay, maybe a bit shame. Yeah, this is one of the culture of our students. So I think I have to appoint directly
Yes.
the students. Yeah.
I think
Okay.
it's the same because in our country as well, the students sometimes they can tend to get a bit shy.
Right. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I think I will call Atsila. Yeah. Atsila, do you have any questions, or please ask your question to Professor Mac?
Good afternoon.
Atsila?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes. Good
I
afternoon.
think you will ask something for Professor Mac.
Right now, I haven't have a question, sir, because the professor explained it very clearly for me.
Right.
Okay, that's great to hear.
Okay, I think now we go to Dafa. Dafa Nur Hafzah Atijaya. Dafa? Okay.
Okay.
Dafa is not ready now. Okay, all
Yes.
right. I think I will go to I have to go to Ikrar. Ikrar Aruming Wilujeng. Ikrar, do you have any question, Ikrar?
Yeah, sure. But wait a
Yeah,
minute.
please.
Give
Yeah,
me
all right.
2 minutes.
Sure, take your time.
Okay, Ikrar, ready? Okay, while we are waiting for
For
Ikrar,
Ikrar.
I think, ladies and gentlemen, ASEAN is a group of countries that I think was very important, yeah, for now and for future, because it comprises several big countries. I mean, in terms of populations, and also in terms of economic resources, yeah. And some of the countries can be classified as developed countries, such
Yes.
as Singapore, yeah. But
Yes.
the difference level of development among ASEAN countries, I think one of the problems in the cooperation of the ASEAN, because sometimes cooperation will work well, yeah, if the level of the development is at least similar, yeah. This is, I think, one of the problem of ASEAN. But I think the hit of pandemic is very serious for some ASEAN countries, because one of the way to manage the pandemic is by vaccination, yeah, vaccinations, and also implemented some discipline in the social relationship and so on and so forth, such as lockdown and so on and so forth. And I think this is a big problem for our countries. Yeah, not only our countries, for several ASEAN countries. For Indonesia, for example, having a full vaccination for the population, I think something that is not easy, because our population number is very big. Yeah, and I think also with Philippines. Yeah,
Yes, that's right,
yeah,
Professor. Yeah, we were
yeah, and this
facing. Actually, you're even facing more challenges because of you have more islands and you have more people.
exactly,
Yes, you're
and
a
we
bigger
have less
country.
money.
Yes. No, I don't believe that.
Yeah.
I think Indonesia has more money.
And then I think the thing that is more hard, I think, or the harder, is upon the discipline of society to obey the standard and procedures of handling this pandemic. Yeah. If we look at around the countries, I mean, every especially in some villages, I think we can find that so many people basically has no openness to the procedure and system to combat with COVID. Yeah, but I think this is a common problem for all countries in ASEAN, except maybe Singapore, because the small numbers of populations. Yeah. Okay, Ikrar. Ready,
Okay.
Ikrar?
Okay, sir.
Yeah,
I
right.
have a question. Domestic investor in Indonesia is still low. I mean, like, the ratio of domestic investor in GDP is still low and so far from Malaysia and Singapore. Right now is especially in Indonesia, investment is still dominated with foreign investment. What if there are more domestic investor in the country? Can it strengthen the financial market?
If so, you're asking how to correct me if I'm wrong. You're asking how to strengthen domestic participation. Is that
Yes,
it,
sir.
Ikrar? That's it. Oh yeah. I think with regards to domestic investor participation, if you don't mind me, I'm going to quote the Philippine experience. The Philippine experience is that what happened in the Philippines. That's why investment, especially in the stock market or the financial markets, became quite a boom in the Philippines, is because of education. It has to start with that, because most people don't wish to invest in things which they don't know or they don't understand. I think that's very clear, right? You would not want to invest in something that you don't know, and you would not want to invest in something that you don't understand. That's just throwing away your money. You're not using your head. Now, in order to attract people to get more involved, you have to have education. That means that I'm not talking about formal education, although formal education like universities has a big role in this, okay? But in terms of, say for example, telling people that, okay, we're going to introduce to you stock market trading. This is the stock market. This is how it works. This is how you're going to make money off it. You just put it in a company that you believe in and you care about and you share values with, okay? And that's it. You can let your money grow there. So that's the proper perspective. That's a proper perspective of engaging investor, domestic investor. I'm talking about the ordinary people like you and I. Okay, that's how it works. Because if you're just going to look at investors with a little bit of money, with big money, here, especially in Southeast Asia, there are few far in between. Okay, most of the unused funds are actually in the hands of us ordinary people. You have savings, right? Even you have savings. Now, rather than your savings earning a little percent, actually your interest rates are higher there in Indonesia, but your stock market can actually grow and give you a higher rate. Okay, so that means you get more money by investing in a good sized company. So that's the key. The key is to tell people, educate people, tell them about how financial markets work, and that should steer up the ordinary people into using their savings, using part of their savings. Not I'm saying entire savings, part of their savings as a form of investment. Because as a finance professor, here's what we always teach our students: don't put all your investments or all your eggs in one basket. Right? I think it's a very common sense thing. If you put all your eggs in one basket and one bump, it'll all break. That's why you have to put your eggs in different baskets in order to reduce the risk. Okay. So what does that mean in investment parlance? In investment parlance, it means, like, for example, I have a little money, I'm going to put it in the bank. I have a little money, I'm going to put it in. That means that your extra money, you apportion it. A little money, I put it in the bank. A little money, I put in the stock market. A little money, I put in like, let's say, for example, I have investment. I have a small store. I'm going to put it there, and I'm going to put some of my money in another form of investment, like insurance or something like that. So that's the correct approach in investment. That's the correct approach in finance. You don't just put there in or everything in the bank and then just expect it to really grow tremendously. That's why growth and wealth is actually, it's in your hands. Okay, it's in your hands. That's all I can say about this. Thank you for the question, Ikrar. I
All
hope,
right.
I hope that answered your question.
Ikra, do you have response?
I have a second question, sir.
Oh yes,
All
go
right.
ahead.
Okay,
please.
okay, please.
What if there are more domestic investor in a country than a foreign investor? Can it strengthen the financial market?
Oh, definitely it will. More participation will actually generate a lot of so to speak, market movement. Okay. The reason, okay, I'll give you a little secret. Do you know, for the longest time, prior to the 2010, Singapore was actually the Singapore Stock Exchange was actually quite, shall we say, it's lethargic. Okay. The reason for that is that although the reason is not really entirely because of it has everything. I think this would answer your question. It has everything to do with domestic investor confidence, because for a time, if you recall, during the 1990s, I think you were already taught that, right? During the 1990s, before the Asian pandemic, Malaysia actually enjoyed a very strong economy. Okay, they were producing cars, they even produced skyscrapers like the Petronas Towers, right? They were really there. And they started posting their companies, listing their companies in the Singapore Stock Exchange. Now the Singaporeans were, of course, very interested because they've seen how Malaysia grew, right, during the 1990s. So they started investing a lot in Malaysian companies which were being offered in Singapore Stock Exchange. Then the 1997 crisis happened and everything came tumbling down. Now, what happened was all the investor funds went down the drain. That's the risk also of stock market, because if the companies close down, if the companies file for bankruptcy, there's no protection for the investor. So that means that what happened was the listing was pulled out, and the Singaporeans were, of course, shocked and angry at the same time, because what happened to our money? It got lost, and there was no way for it to recover because of the mechanism of the Singapore Stock Exchange. And you can expect that in the next decade or so, people did not trust the Singapore Stock Exchange anymore, and they stopped investing in stocks and they started investing rather in insurances, or they started investing in bonds or in other forms of investment, or just simply put their money in the bank rather than invest in the stock market. And the Singapore Stock Exchange was a ghost town, so to speak. No one was really entertaining that. Now, how will it impact the availability of funds? It impacted the availability of funds because companies also need the stock exchange in order for them to be able to acquire funds, because that's one of the ways that they acquire funds. They sell portions of their company. Now, when they try to sell, no one's buying because no one's trusting the stock exchange. So you see, stock exchanges also have a very crucial role in this. So the company can just go and sell to the public like you would sell waffles, or buy some stocks. Here you go, buy some stocks. Only $1 Singapore. You can't do that, okay? Or you can't post it in a grocery and sell your stocks like that. No, you can't do that. You have to go through the stock exchange, and with the stock exchange receiving the reputation is receiving a hit, that's what happened. So that means that for a time, the companies were not able to maximize their growth potential, and they had to look for other sources of of funding, particularly outside debt or outside borrowings, or they were borrowing money from banks outside, which of course would charge them extra because of the inherent risks, especially after the 1997 Asian crisis. Okay, so you see that's the effect of investor confidence and investor, even the ordinary investor being participative in the financial economy. Okay, I hope that answered your question, Ikrar.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a good question.
Okay, thank you, Ikrar. I think trust is very important, the most important maybe for capital market, because it will make a confidence for the players. Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
But in addition to trust, I think the knowledge of society is also very important. Talking about this in Indonesia, for example, I think the literacy for capital market, for financial market, for most Indonesian people is, I think, still below average, maybe. Yeah, I mean, if we compare with the developed countries, so capital market is not the best place for putting and then growing their money. Yeah.
That's right.
But I think last but not least, the third factors for participating in capital market is having money.
Yes, that's right.
That's the problem as well.
Disposable
So
incomes.
your advice about don't put your eggs into one basket. It's not relevant for most of students because they don't have much eggs. if they don't have much eggs, there is no problem about putting eggs in the one basket or
But
not.
if you only have one egg, I
Yeah.
guess that ends the argument.
Yeah, this is just joking. But I think in
Yes.
Indonesia, for educating people about capital market, there was so many things that has been done by government, yeah, by authority as well, and also by some universities as well. Yeah, there are so many what is called as sekolah. Sekolah means school. Yeah, school for capital market. Yeah. And then also people can participate in capital market since from a very small number of money. Yeah, we can start from less than $8 US dollar, $8. Yeah, to play in capital market. I think this is very small number of money, and it is something that make possible for many people participate in capital market. Yeah.
So that's
Okay.
really
Thank you,
small.
Ikra. Yeah. We're still waiting for others. Other questions or maybe comment is also welcome. Yeah, post from students.
Yes. Please don't be shy.
Don't be shy, my dear students. All right, I think we are while we are waiting
there's a raised hand by Banya.
Oh yeah, is there any student who has raised hand?
Banya has raised.
Mario wants to ask questions, sir.
All right, please, Banya. Yeah, please.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Prof. Mac. A very comprehensive explanation. Really bring us insights about financial markets, especially in ASEAN.
Thank you.
If I may sum up from Ikrar's questions, it is said that domestic investors in the Philippines are not confident enough, and therefore they are not really engaging the investment. The question is, what actually makes the domestic investor are not trusting the stock exchange apart from the knowledge they had? Are the local business registered in the Philippines stock market didn't perform well, so that the literal people who understand the financial market didn't invest? And the second one is how actually Philippines contributes to Asian financial market. I think two questions first.
Yeah, two questions. Yeah. Okay. So I think I can tackle all of that in one go. Okay. So if you'll just allow me. And I also have to correct the notion that the market I was talking about a while ago was the Singapore market, the Singapore Stock Exchange, that they lost confidence. But their confidence is back now, by the way. So that's why they're going up. In the case of the Philippines, it's more of initially it was because of the lack of knowledge or the lack of education with regards to capital markets. When someone talks about, it used to be that when someone talks about stock market in the Philippines, it's there's always this image that someone who engages in stock market is someone with a coat and tie and drives a fancy car and has really a lot of cash, lying around, and that they're playing in the stock market like it's in a casino and stuff like that. That's why there's this notion in the Philippines before that if you invest in the stock market, you have to have extra money and you have to be really rich. Okay, and it didn't help that, because for you to be able to engage in the stock market, you need to have a broker. And brokers before would not entertain you if you don't have about ₱1,000,000. Okay, so that's roughly $20,000 in US. Okay, so if you don't have that much money, they're not going to entertain you. That's how it was before. And compounded with the lack of education, people were not really that participative. But when discount brokers, this is really important, because when discount brokers, I think similar to what Professor Anto said a while ago, that there are mechanisms in which people can actually enter into the capital markets with less money, like this one, discount brokers. The discount brokers actually allow people, ordinary people, to be able to invest in the stock market for as low as, for us, it's around 5,000 pesos. So that's roughly $100. Okay, it's still a bit high, but it's a good way to start. Okay, so when that became the norm, and when education became the norm, because there were a lot of speakers already who were rising in the Philippines, offering free seminars, free training for stock market. There was really a campaign for that, and people started opening up to it. So you can see ordinary people, even students actually. In my case, when I was the director for finance in Ateneo, a lot of my students were actually in the stock market. They were actually investing in the stock market. So they just put their money there. They trust a particular company. They put their money there, and then they just wait. They don't. I taught them not to go and do trading, but rather investing, because there's a difference. If you're trading, you're going for the movement of the, I think you've seen the charts, like the movement of the stock prices, and that you're going to make money off those of the highs and lows of the market. But when you invest, you just simply put the money there, whether high or low, it doesn't matter, because it follows, if you recall it follows a linear progression. It's always going up. Okay, because you always have to there's a concern in business that we call the ongoing on concern. Businesses have this ongoing on concern. What does going on concern means? It means that each business is obligated to earn profits and continue to earn profits for the sake of its stakeholders. So you being an investor, you're already a stakeholder. So the company already has an obligation to you that it has to keep earning and growing bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, so that your investment will bear fruit, and it will not be a waste of time. And I think that helped in the Philippine model. That helped a lot in educating the people, so that, again, going back, students, teachers, you have nurses, you have bank employees, you have policemen, practically everyone. It's not uncommon for you to see people investing in the stock market. But there are also, of course, a significant population who are still scared to go into that. They say that I don't have extra money, or I don't really understand. That's fine. If you don't understand, then don't invest. Okay, that's the gist there. If you don't understand, then don't invest. Okay, so that's what happened to our country, and that's the model there with regards to the participation of the Filipinos in the capital market. And when these people who already entered into the stock market started earning profits, they began to look for, this is what happened. This is the beautiful thing that happened. They now began to look for other forms of investments. Like they started investing in bonds. When they hear that the government has 10-year bonds, they're gonna look for it actively. Okay, we're gonna invest in government bonds. They're gonna invest in they invested in insurances. Although on the dark side, well, there's I think you've heard of this, the cryptocurrency going on, and then there a lot of people are really gung ho about cryptocurrency and non-fungible tokens and stuff like that, without really understanding the gist of that. I guess it's good if you understand, but if you don't understand and the risks involved, and a lot of people are going into it, that can be dangerous. Because I don't know with you, but the culture in our country, Filipinos are really a folk that we really tend to gravitate towards trends. If it's trendy, every mom and pop, every child, everyone will go into that. Okay, that's the Filipino way. Everyone will get into that. That's why there's even a criticism with regards to putting up of businesses, because if your neighbor opened up a store, you can be rest assured that the rest of your neighbors will also put up a store as well, with the offering the similar products as well. So that's the Filipino mentality. So that can be good at times because it encourages economic participation, but it can also be bad because there's this what we would call as herd mentality. More Filipinos are prone to that without really thinking it through. Just because his neighbor, like for example Juan, did it, so I'm also going to do it, because if he can do it, why not me? That's the sad mentality. Okay, I hope have I covered it all, Vanya, or did I miss anything?
Sure, very well
Yeah.
explanation, sir.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. I think the last one, you
Yeah.
say that the bandwagon effect, right?
Yeah, the bandwagon effect.
The
Exactly. That
bandwagon
was the term I was looking for. Thank you. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much for the explanation, sir. So the ordinary people, the knowledge about stock is not everyone's, especially the ordinary people cups of coffee. It's really something that I especially know about the Filipinos, because ordinary people in Indonesia can also access to the knowledge about stock, because there are a lot of Instagram accounts in Indonesia offer the knowledge. Yeah, they offer that free online learning so that
Yes.
we can freely access to that.
Yeah.
Very well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Awesome, Vanya. And this is special information for you, just for you. Just to let you know that in campus, I mean in our faculty, there is what is called as Pojok Bursa Efek Indonesia, or in English it is called as Indonesian Stock Exchange Corner.
Oh.
Yeah, yes, we have, where students or every people can get a lot of information about capital market, and also can do investment in capital market through there. So I think hopefully the pandemic will stop soon.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
then you can go to the campus, real campus, not online campus. Yeah. And then you can start to invest your money through Indonesian Stock Exchange Corner in our campus. Okay, thank you, Vanya. Very great. Okay, is there still any question for students? All right, I think while we are,
there's still
okay,
one more.
one more. Hania.
Yeah.
All right, Hania, please. Hania
has raised her hand.
Yeah. Okay. Good afternoon, Professor Mike.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I would like to say thank you for the fruitful session. I was just wondering around, like I don't really have any optimism that Indonesia will recover the pandemic in a short period of time, and I believe that Indonesia is not performing really well than any other Asian countries. My question is, what if in the worst case scenario, Indonesia is still suffering in the pandemic but other Asian countries is already recovered the pandemic. And will Indonesia bad performance affect the Asian financial market as a whole, or the country will just stand it by themselves?
Okay.
Thank
First
you.
of all, I don't really believe that Indonesia will lag behind. Okay. I'm not saying this because I'm talking to you guys right now. Okay. I'm not saying that. Okay. I'm saying it based on your fundamentals. Okay. As you can see, Indonesia has the benefit among all the ASEAN countries. Indonesia has the benefit of having the largest population and practically vast reserves of natural resources. I mean, between your country and mine, you have oil. Okay, so I don't any country. I have yet to see any country with oil actually become a laggard economically. Okay, so you have oil, you have timber, you have coal. Practically, I think our country imports a lot of coal from your country. So as you can see, I don't see Indonesia really falling far behind. Okay, so that's just my take on it. That's just my opinion, though. Okay, but that's my the way I see the makeup of your country, the geography, and all. I think Indonesia has the tools to really recover, if not become on track. Do you know that your country is? I think it was already discussed in one of your studies that actually Indonesia is included in the next 11, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the next 11 economies. So you see, the Philippines isn't even part of the next 11. So Indonesia really has a very big potential. So that's my take on that. But as to regards to, okay, now this is the clincher. As to if the worst case scenario, Indonesia does not recover, okay, whether we like it or not, the ASEAN has already begun ties regarding our economy. While the free trade is not yet there, we are experiencing more and more exchanges of goods, and we are experiencing relaxation of some tariffs. And as you can see, even the inflow and outflow of tourists, okay, if you recall before the pandemic, is actually quite at an all-time high before the pandemic, because if you just hold, like for example, I am holding a Philippine passport and I go to Indonesia, I don't need a visa. I can just present my passport and I can go there. You can go to my country, just present your Indonesian passport, and it's really easy. Okay, so you can go in and out of each countries, not a problem. Okay, and so that means that businessmen, professionals, they can start moving, and that's the key. And there has been movement already, and there has been move already towards financial integration. Now, if that were to happen, that would really hamper ASEAN as a whole and all the aspirations of ASEAN as a whole. Okay, you know, one of the reasons why if you recall, one of your classmates said that there are 10 countries in ASEAN, but we haven't counted Timor-Leste here, right?
Yeah.
If you recall, yes. Have you not wondered why Timor-Leste has been accorded observer status but not full-fledged membership yet? Okay, and it's not because of Indonesia. Okay, let's make it clear. It's not because of Indonesia. It's because of Singapore. Actually, Indonesia has been pushing for Timor-Leste to become a full member, if I recall. Singapore has blocked the move. Why? Because Timor-Leste has less than satisfactory financial capability. Its financial markets are not yet quite developed. Its economy even is not yet really developed. So if we were as a region to absorb the membership of Timor-Leste as we are moving towards the Asian economic cooperation or the Asian economic integration, that would really put a damper on everything else. Okay, because that would mean that there would be one laggard there. And whether you like it or not, if there's one laggard country, it will ultimately affect the whole. Okay, I'll give you an example. It hasn't happened to ASEAN yet, but I'll give you a concrete example. The European Union. You know, the European Union has a tons of problems because of laggard countries like Greece, right?
Yeah.
Greece, yeah, if you recall, Greece actually became bankrupt. Okay, so who has to shoulder it all? Definitely, in order to bail out Greece, in order to save Greece, they need the cooperation of the other European countries. It's the same. And Indonesia is one of the biggest countries in ASEAN. God forbid that will happen. That would really be disastrous for ASEAN as a whole, because Indonesia is really big. It's really even bigger than my country. It's even bigger than Malaysia in terms of population and market size, mind you, market size. Okay, it's always about market size. Okay, so Indonesia is a very big market, and if something were to happen, it would truly be disastrous. But again, looking at the fundamentals, I don't think there's any reason to be fearful or to be worried. Okay, it's not only your country, it's also other countries, especially our country as well, who have suffered through the pandemic. The ball now rests with your government on how your government is going to manage the crisis, how it's going to weather. Right now, what we're doing right now is just weathering the storm. Okay, we cannot do any economic planning, we cannot do any business planning at this point, because whatever it is, it would really screw everything up. So what we can do right now is we're just gonna weather the storm, just survive, and when all of us are already vaccinated and the pandemic has passed, then we can start planning ahead for the future. And I think Indonesia has what it takes to do that. Okay.
Okay.
I hope that satisfied your question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor, for the explanation and positivity.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Okay, I think the point from Professor Max for Ania and also for the all students, don't worry too much about the future. But Hania, I have a special message for you. Please don't ask that question again. It was so scary.
I don't know that
No
for
people.
that, sir.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Hania. Very great questions.
Yes,
All
very
right.
good question. Indri has a question, Prof. I
All
think.
right. Okay, Indri, please, Indri.
Thank you so much, Dr. Josh, for your presentation, and I was overwhelmed by your explanation. But I note that you highlighted that stock market performance will be declined in the next few decades. Is that right? Maybe because
Yeah, please continue. Please continue. I'm sorry.
okay, because people maybe will not trust the stock market anymore, and I agree with your statement, because a stock market performance is more driven by the investor sentiment than the company performance itself, and the resources. Thus, the company maybe in the next few decades will obtain their funds in more conventional ways, such as getting operational funds from the banks, and but the current situation is Indonesian government still continue to develop or enhance the stock market's performance. Could you please maybe, Dr. just to elaborate this or your statements further? And one more question is there any suggestion for the millennials who have limited money, as maybe previously mentioned by Prof. Anto, to invest in any instrument, in any effective instrument? Because there is no safe havens instrument, but at least the stable or not the really high risk instruments. Thank you, Dr. Jess.
Okay, I will address your last question first. Okay. I think
Thank
for
you.
me this is more. I think for me this is more important. For millennials or for youth like you who have limited access to funds, the best thing to do if you're keen on investing, here's the key. If you're keen on investing, here's what you should do first. What you should do first is save. That's the very first key. You have to save. Okay. So what does that mean? If you want something, right? If you want to buy something, you're saving, right? you're cutting on your expenses, you're looking for ways in order to get more money, and then put it safely in one side, okay, until it accumulates enough so that you can buy it. Have that kind of mindset if you're going to invest, okay? And all the more that it's more noble than buying a new cell phone, right? Yeah, because this time you'll be going for something that when you invest in, right? When you invest in, it'll give you returns rather than it being a hindrance, than it being just a fad or any of that sort. So that means that if you really want to be an investor, being an investor, like I said, it doesn't matter if you're old or young, if you're a student or if you're working. If you can save, if you have the capability to save, if you have the capability to put aside some of your funds, you're already one step ahead. We're already one step ahead in becoming the next investor. Okay, so you've already put aside your funds, and when you've already amassed some of your funds, okay, that's when you start considering. Okay, stock market is one thing. It's risky. They say it's exciting, but if you're playing it safe, if you play it safe, like for example, you're investing in a good company and you're just parking your funds there and then just waiting for it to grow, or if there are dividends and you earn dividends from that, okay, I think that that would be good as well. And also, don't try to discount the banks, by the way. If you've earned enough, I think the banks would also give you a substantial interest rate. Okay, it's not like in the how Prof, if I may ask, what are the interest rates for savings accounts in Indonesia right now?
I think about maybe 5%.
See, it's 5%. You compare it with our country if you compare it with our country gives 0.25%. Practically, it's a joke. Actually, it's 0.25%. So the fact that you're in Indonesia, take advantage of that. Okay, put your money in the bank. Okay, that's good. That's the very first step. That's a very good step. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jess. I
yeah.
get free consultation here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and banks are safe, mind you. And banks are really safe, mind you. Okay, now to move on to the next question, which is about oh my, I think I kind of forgotten that.
The stock market performance will be declined the next few decades, as you predicted, maybe.
Yeah, the market decline, born out of investor confidence. If you're alarmed with that, it's nothing really to be scared of. Okay, but let's just get the picture out here. Okay, if there is a decline in the capital markets, definitely that would hamper the capability of the companies to be able to get additional funding. Okay, and that's why we are in not only we are in a pandemic, but we are also in an economic crisis. Okay, because that part of the portion of the company that they are able to gather funds have been severely blocked and hampered because people, of course, it's a pandemic. There's a tendency for the increase in savings or people to hold on to their money. Okay, so that's normal. Now, if you look at it from another perspective, okay, say for example that you're the company, would you even consider expanding at this point in time? Okay, so what I mean is it's a pandemic. So that means that whatever plan you have in order to, say, for example, create a new factory, or perhaps buy more stocks, or perhaps increase the production, okay, or any of that sort, you wouldn't be thinking of it at this point in time in the pandemic. You'll probably stay put. If you're the president of the company, you'll probably stay put and say, okay, guys, since it's a pandemic, we'll just limit it to how the demand is going to be. Okay, because remember, businessmen are also conscious of the demands of the market. Okay, So if the demand is low or getting lower, definitely you have to also reduce your production, right? Because any excess of that, law of supply and demand, any excess of that would value your products. And actually, ultimately, it would force the business to go closing down. So what you do is you reduce, or even more drastic, there would even be layoffs, there would even be retrenchment. Okay, and I hope that does not happen, but that could be also the case. So that means getting additional funds is far from the minds of businesses right now. What they are thinking right now is girding their loins, getting ready, tightening their belts in order for them to survive and just weather the storm for now. If you go around in my country, I've seen it. There are a lot of businesses that have laid the foundations, groundbreaking, so to speak, and until now, since 2020, there has been no construction. There has been no movement. The reason for that is because what's the use? If you're going to put up something and then there is no demand for it, then what's the use? So they'll just stay put. So that means that investor participation is just like investor participation and the attitude of the businesses are one with this. That means that we are right now in a crisis, and that's what a crisis is all about, because no one's putting out their money, no one is investing, and money is not moving except for, of course, the basic essentials. So that's what it is all about. The only way that this would go up and we would be able to recover is if the pandemic is already over. Okay? So that's the take on that. So it's not so much as, they won't have money, because you only need the additional funds if you're going to expand, okay? Or if you're going to create a new product line, or if you're going to create something, or the moment you use funds in order to prop up your business, something's wrong with your business. Maybe you should review your management rather than get new funds. Okay, that's the key there. That's the key. I've been a consultant for businesses, and that's what I usually say. If you're using money in order to prop up your business, let's look at your efficiency. Maybe you're not efficient. You don't need additional funds. You need to be more efficient. That's what I always say. Okay. I hope that answers my question. Your question.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jess.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, my dear students, I think we still have 5 minutes. If there are students who want to ask questions, I think we still have 5 minutes.
Yes, they're beginning to warm up, Prof.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I think while we are waiting for students, I think now the lecturers also has a right to ask questions.
Yes.
Or maybe give another comments about the presentation of Professor Mac. So maybe our colleagues, Bapak and Ibu, yeah, Bapak mean Mr. and Ibu is Mrs. Yeah, Mr. and Mrs. lecturers want to ask questions, please.
Yes.
Don't be hesitate. Please feel free. Please, my colleagues. Maybe Mr. Hakim want to ask some things. Mr. Hakim, I think Mr. Hakim has also backgrounds and expert in capital market also. Yeah, Pak Hakim, please.
Well, it's far from expert. Well, wondering, what about the perhaps you have some data about the capital flow across countries right now in ASEAN. Do you think it is really bad? I mean, the capital flow across countries in ASEAN?
Bad. Well, with regards to the so far, from what I'm seeing in the ASEAN, yeah, actually, I don't want to say this, but yeah, I think it really is the capital flow, because as you can see, critical here is the case of lockdowns as well, because whether we like it or not, capital flow are also affected by the movement of people and the movement of goods. And having lockdowns would also have an effect on the funding as well. Although probably we're looking at several multinationals, like for example, I'm sorry, every time Indonesia, I think of Indomie and
Indomie, yeah.
Kopiko. I love those products, by the way. These are very big conglomerates, and I think that in terms of capital flow, they don't have to rely so much on their mother base, because they already have establishments there in the Philippines. So technically, if we're going to look at that from that standpoint, and also the fact that there's an ongoing pandemic, I don't think investment or the movement or the putting in of money is at an all-time high right now. I think most investors would want to stay put at this point. It's not only in the ASEAN, but also in other countries that are currently experiencing surges in the COVID pandemic, like India, for instance. The Indian subcontinent is also a very big market, by the way. And I think they're also suffering the same. And I can't say the same though for the United States and Europe, because by now they have already successfully vaccinated most of their population. So they're starting to recover right now. I hope that answers. I hope I satisfied your question, Professor Hakim. Thank you.
Maybe other lecturers, other Bapak and Ibu.
I Ando.
Yeah.
Good afternoon,
Please,
sir.
Pak Tohirin, Mr. Tohirin, Ahmad Tohirin.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Prof. Jose.
Good afternoon, sir.
Should I call you Jose or?
Yes, that would be fine, sir.
Okay.
Not a problem.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. Jose.
Thank you.
I just have a small curiosity in terms of looking at the industry in Philippines in terms of capital market industry.
Yes.
Do you think that under the same problematic era in current situation and the pandemic COVID-19, is there any tendency that capital market is slowing down in Philippines, especially in terms if we compare between the performance in capital market and in banking, for example, because these two institutions are complement each other or can be an alternative for each other. Recently in Indonesia, for example, the interest rate tends to be very insignificant, especially for saving account, for example. Or even deposit account also tending to decline. But I cannot see also that the investor move from deposit to stock, for example.
Yes, that's right.
That not really happens. Is this phenomenon quite similar with the one happens in Philippines, Prof. Jose?
Actually, the Philippines is a unique case because the Philippine stock market actually is a secondary market. So that means that practically, I don't know. I sometimes criticize the PSE because whenever there are shocks, and I am also shocked, by the way, by the reaction of the PSE, because if there are global calamities and then all of a sudden it also experiences another, I'm like, we have no connection to that. It's an earthquake in the United States. Why are you all going down? It's like that. Whenever there is negative news, something happens to the Philippine Stock Exchange. But other than that, I think that the outlook there, is that it's still being propped up by, like I said, like I mentioned, there's a significant, not really a large portion of the population, but there's a significant chunk of the population in the Philippines that are actually young and millennial type of investors. So these young and millennial types of investors are more at home with the remote or online, so that they're doing a lot of online stock.
Investor or gamer, Prof.
Yeah.
Investor or gamer?
Yeah. So that means that they're not really affected by these rumors and stuff like that, and they continue to trade as well. So as you can see, the Philippines is really experiencing somewhat a neutral stance with regards to the effect of the pandemic. Initially, there was a shock that it really went down, but as it recovered, it kind of tapered off, and the use back to normal, back to business as well, or business as usual. That's what happened in the Philippine stock exchange. So not much of pessimism, so to speak, if you'll allow me to use the term. There's not much of a pessimism there. Yeah.
Thank you.
hope
One more
satisfied
question,
you.
Prof. Jose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
In terms of
Appreciate it, sir. Yes.
as we know that currently in mature capital market they develop the Islamic capital market. What about that industry in Philippines? Is there any Islamic capital market in operation in Philippines?
For now, that's why we've been trying to educate ourselves with regards to the Islamic financial markets and the Islamic financial system. But mostly, much of the interest has come from southern Mindanao, so the south. That's Mindanao, from where I come from. I'm from Davao City, and although Davao City has is a predominantly Christian city, there are a significant segment of the population that are Muslim, and as a majority, most of the people in Mindanao are actually Muslims, especially as mentioned, the Bangsamoro, which is actually in Cotabato City, and that's it's actually quite far from Davao City to Cotabato City.
They used to have Philippine Amanah Bank, right? Islamic Bank in Philippines.
The Amanah, yes, I had
this or not?
I had the privilege of talking to them, and also consulting with them, and so far Amana Bank actually is now gearing more towards the Islamic mode of banking, because prior to that, this is really funny because it's an Islamic bank, but prior to that, when I was still in Ateneo, they kind of lamented to us that yes, we are an Islamic bank, sir, but our charter states that we adopt a Western banking mode. I was like, what? Because the one who drafted at that time was, of course, the Philippine government, not them. So that means that the Philippine government is primarily Christian, so they don't have they practically have no knowledge of Islamic finance or Islamic banking. So their hands were tied at that time. But thankfully, new laws were passed, so they're slowly, I'm saying slowly, slowly introducing Islamic products, banking products to the general populace in Mindanao. But then of course the acceptance is not really that good yet, because even if they are Muslims, they were so used to the Western style. So that's the dilemma there. That's the situation there, sir.
It has complication with politics things, huh?
Yes, of course. It's a mix with politics. I think the one who drafted that was President Marcos. That was way back. I don't think it was born yet.
I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Jose.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Okay.
Thank you,
There is
Wanda.
special. Yeah. Okay. If I'm not wrong, there is special term for calling Islamic finance in Philippines, that is Islamic friendly finance. Yeah, just friendly, not totally Islamic. Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Right.
That's right.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Mac, Jose Mac, and then dear my colleagues, Papa and Ibu, I think this afternoon discussion was extremely interesting, but time flashed, I think. We get so many things, so many insight and deep knowledge from Professor Mac, especially because of his very, very good background as academicians as well as practitioners. So he could give us a deep analysis, in terms of science and in terms of practical, yeah. And it was very interesting. And of course, then it is very hard to make a good conclusion about our discussion this afternoon. But maybe one thing that we can make a conclusion is that in the short time, maybe the situation of financial market in ASEAN is still unpredictable because of the pandemic. But in the long term, yeah, I think we have optimism about the ASEAN because of the populations, because of the resources, and so on and so forth. So I think we have to develop ourselves as ASEAN members, ASEAN people, to be optimistic about the future.
Right.
That's maybe wrap up our discussion this morning. And I think this is just still the beginning of the cooperations discussion between Professor Mac and us, or maybe between Malayan College, yeah.
Yes.
Because another time I think we can make another cooperations to share ideas, to share knowledge, and so on and so forth. Yeah, hopefully.
Yes.
And
Hopefully.
Pak Hakim, I think will take over. Yeah, this cooperation for the next future. Yeah.
Yes.
This is still the startup. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much indeed for Mr. Mac. In as a Muslim, sometimes we make a dua, we make a pray for our college. Yeah, maybe this become one of our good deed, amal salih. Yeah, that make a benefit not only for the world but also for the hereafter. Wallahu alam bisawab. Thank you, Mr. Mike, yeah, and also my dear students, yeah. You are truly a good students, yeah. And also my colleagues, Papa and Ibu as well, that has spent the time, afternoon time normally become a sleepy time, but now we didn't sleepy at all. Thank you. And I think the times and the connection will be back to Mr. Master of Ceremony, Prof. Hakim.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Pak Hakim. Selamat, Prof. Mac.
Selamat. Thank you, Prof. Anto.
Yes,
Thank you.
magandang hapon.
Terima
Yeah.
kasih.
Okay, thank you, Anto. What can I say? What is happening today, this afternoon, is beyond expectation. It was a very good speech very good lecture from Professor Mike. Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, and thank you so much to my students and my colleagues for participating in this lecture. There are a lot of good questions and a very good spoken English from all you guys. Thank you, and to all the lecturers who also attend this meeting. Actually, there are a lot of lecturers as well, Prof. But maybe time is not enough to all of them to participate in this event. But thank you very much for all of you to have joining this event. As Pak Anto said, I think this is the beginning of the future cooperation. Hopefully, we will, and there are a lot of things that we can do in the future. Maybe joint research, maybe joint lecturing, and so on.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would be very good.
Okay. So I think that concludes the session today. Oh, by the way, do we have photo like session together? Something like that?
Yes.
Mbak Nisa?
Yeah.
Mbak Nisa, is there?
Yeah. Yeah, Mbak Nisa.
Or maybe Pak Isan?
Yes, sir.
Bisa bikin foto bersama?
Bisa, Pak.
Oke, silakan. Maybe to all the students, can you put your camera on, your video on, please? Are you still there? Pak Isan silakan diatur.
Okay. Right now, I will take a picture. It's only one page, so please bear with me. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, once more. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Isan. I think that conclude the session. Could you please join me to thanks to Prof. Jose, Mike?
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much, Prof.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's an honor and pleasure to speak at your esteemed university.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. The pleasure is mine. Okay. So that concludes the session today. On behalf of all the committee members, I would like to thank to all you guys that we have a very successful event today. Hopefully, we will have another one in the near future. Thank you very much. That's all for me. Let's finish this very quick session by Alhamdulillah together. Alhamdulillah. And I will see you in another session in the future. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'll see you soon, Prof. Mike, in another session.
Bye.
Prof. Jose.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bapak Ibu.
Pak Isan, you can end the meeting now. Thank you all the students.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, Pak Ato.
Ya, sama-sama Pak. Sama-sama.
Terima kasih teman-teman dosen yang sudah hadir.